Hey guys, so today we are going to talk a little bit about tools and what happens when you have seen enough that they're not as important anymore. So let's get into it. Now, the other day I was talking to one of my co-workers who is a true senior. Like, he's been doing this for quite some time, and he's worked on some of the older applications out there in the world. Now, what do I mean by older applications? Well, I mean the sort of application that has been around for more than 30 or 40 years. So he's seen software that has been written back in the days when software was like kind of this new thing, like before the IT age, basically, or rather when it was just kind of emerging. And what's interesting about this is that when you talk to such a person, you get a very interesting perspective from him, or from such a person. And I always enjoy talking to these people who have been around for so long, because they have a lot of very valuable insight into how the evolution, if you will, of tools and so forth has how it's been going so far. And something that he shared, which I thought was great, was that he was talking about this. Well, we have this hype nowadays, especially in front end, where there's so many trends and there are so many tools and ways of doing things, and people are talking about nicer ways of doing things and worse things of doing things, and people are kind of picky with their tool suites, and it almost becomes a popularity contest for some things to, in order for people to adopt them. And he said, for him, who's been working in, like old C++ code that's been around for years and years and years, he said, he always says, whenever somebody says, oh, this is really horrible code, I kind of look at it and I go, oh, it's not so bad. And that makes me happy in my heart, because I know, like, you have to put it in perspective. He has literally seen and worked in code that is so old that it existed before all these best practices and like all of the stuff that you and I take for granted has been around. Like it wasn't around back in those days. And it made me kind of realize that, for him, he's been forced to kind of keep up, like in order for him to stay relevant, he's been forced to see tools come and go and make basically a case-by-case decision on what he should invest his time in and what he should avoid. And I started talking to him about this, and he said that, well, after a while you kind of learn, you start to see the similarities between the different tools, and you start to realize, like, you start to kind of get a feel for what a good tool is and what a bad tool is, and because when you start to understand the different concepts, because most of it builds on the same ideas, usually. If, like, let's take databases for example. Like, a database is always a database. It's just doing what it's supposed to be doing in a different way. And once you have enough knowledge and you know the different ways that databases can achieve these goals, you realize that there is actually not that much of a difference. There's really no reason and what stuck with me, what he said was that you start seeing the pattern, and because you see the pattern, you're much quicker at adopting new practices and new tools. And that stuck with me, because that's exactly how it works, how it started working for me. A lot of people have asked me, and he gave me a very nice compliment that, well, it was very flattering. He said that he thought it was pretty cool that someone like that I could, because I share, like, you may not know, well, of course you don't know this, you don't work at my office, but I do some presentations outside of this little YouTube channel of mine, and I do some workshops, and I've done a few presentations here in Gothenburg. And basically, I talk about different tools and practices and so forth, right? And so he said to me that he finds it very interesting to, watch and hear me talk about the different tools and practices and ideas that I have about certain things. And I mean, that's very flattering, because let's just be honest here, he's been programming for about 3 times as long as I have. I mean, he's been doing it for years and years and years. And to have someone like that tell me that, hey, you seem to know a lot of stuff about this stuff here, and it's very useful to me. That feels very nice. But what it made me realize, and what stuck with me, is that it's happening to me as well. Because when I first started out, for me, you can't, and this is why I keep telling you guys, when it comes to, when you're a junior, you start off by just learning 1 or 2 tools, and you kind of depend on them. But after a while, you start feeling comfortable in them, and you start maybe trying out different solutions and tools and so forth. And then at some point, you reach this state, I don't know what to call it, but you get so familiar with the concepts that you realize that it takes you less and less time to learn new things. In the beginning, everything takes it feels like it takes a million years, because you're learning it for the first time. And although you never get to a point where learning something new is just a breeze, because learning new things it's tricky. It becomes less tricky. And that's what we kind of talked about. And he basically told me that he agreed that, for him, who's been doing it for so long, remember guys, when he started, most of the tools that you and I use, that he was building and was working with, they don't even exist anymore. So for him, it's a lifelong journey to learn new things and keep yourself updated if you're planning to stay in this industry for your entire career. So what's powerful about it is that over time you see enough things that, because keeping up can feel like a tedious task. I mean, I know I felt that in the beginning. I felt like, do I have to feel all this anxiety and go through all of this hardship to learn new things all the time? And in a way, it kind of depends. It's not that you give a universal rule that you have to, but what I want you to take away is that, yes, you kind of have to keep yourself fairly updated, but it might feel tedious, but what's nice is that when you spend enough time working, you get to a point where you just start learning things much quicker. I mean, I spent quite a bit of time in front end with all these JavaScript tools, and since I have done that, and I've burnt my fingers basically so many times, I now kind of feel like it's much quicker for me. Learning a new concept or a new framework takes hours instead of weeks, because it used to take me a long time to learn these new tools, but today it's not the case. It's much quicker. And as you learn more and more tools and you see more and more concepts and you gain more experience, the faster you're going to be able to adopt new technologies and new tools. So what I want you to remember now, guys, is that if you are a junior, in the beginning, you will feel like it takes you so long to learn all these new tools. But if you just stick with it and keep on progressing, trust me, you will realize that the time it takes you to learn new things will actually get much shorter, because you're going to recognize more and more patterns, and you're going to gain more learning speed, if you will. So just kind of push through it in the beginning, because trust me, it's going to get a lot easier over time. Have a great day.